in question number 3, so all of these, you're writing the equation in slope-intercept form. The line on number 3 is at -3. So for that, you have to remember your Hoy-Bucks. Because this is a vertical line, that's going to be what type of line? An X. And I would look at where does that cross the x-axis at -3. Questions on the second page?
Number 8.
So 8, 9 through 17, you're using your point slope. So I'll write that up here. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Where this is your x1, y1, and your m, and you're going to put each of those into the formula. So that would be y minus 2 equals -3/2 times x minus a -2, and then change it to a plus, or you can just change it to a plus to begin with. No. So then you have to solve for it. Distribute. So y minus 2 equals -3/2x minus 3, the 2's would cancel, and then add 2 on both sides. So all of your answers, unless you get a horizontal or vertical line, should be in y equals mx plus b at the end. Questions on that one? Or other questions on this page? Questions on the third page? Ellie. 16. Or so in all of 13 through 17, you have 2 points instead of a point and slope, so you have to find your slope first by doing y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that would be 0 minus a -5 or plus 5 over 0 minus 4. What would that slope be? -5/4. Or positive 5 over -4, but the whole thing is -5/4. Normally, if we didn't have 0, 0, we would do the same process we just did, pick one of the points, put that in, and find our equation. But because we're given this point, that is our y-intercept, so we don't have to do the rest of that work. I have my slope, I have my y-intercept, I can write my equation. You can put plus 0 or leave it like that. Questions about that? Yeah. So one of the other examples, pick one. Okay, so the process starts off the same way. Find the slope. So 2 minus 3 over 5 plus 4. What would that slope be? Over, not 1. 9. And then choose either of the 2 points. So let's say I choose the second one just because everything's positive. Then I'm going to use my point slope one more time. So this would be y minus 2 equals negative 1/9 times x minus 5. This one is going to give you fractions. So y minus 2 equals negative 1/9 x plus 5/9. And then I would add 2 to both sides. Either doing that in your head, algebraically in the calculator. So if I'm adding 2, that would be 5/9 plus 18. So you could do that if you get a fraction, that math in your head, in the calculator, by hand, algebraically, any of those. Questions on that or other questions on this page before we move on?
Number 12.
12. So with 12, because we have a slope that's undefined, something that's undefined is going to be something with our 40 bucks. What type of line is that going to be? Vertical, so x or y? X. And then I'm going to look at my x value and write that down. There is no work to do when you have an undefined slope. You cannot put undefined in your equation. Yes. Because undefined is a vertical line that's x equals. 11 is very much like the ones we've been doing. So let's move on to parallel and perpendicular. Questions on page 4. Number 20? 20, yes. And number 20 on page 4, find the slope of the line that is parallel and perpendicular to each line whose equation is given. So the first one is in slope-intercept form already. So for the parallel slope, what would that slope be? 4. It has to be the same. And then for the perpendicular, what would that slope be? 2 is the y-intercept. Negative 1 over 4. In B, this is almost in slope-intercept form, but it's switched, so I have to know that this is my slope, not the 5. So for the parallel, what would that slope be? Negative 2. And for the perpendicular, what would that slope be? Positive 1/2. And then for C, we have to solve that. Get y by itself. What would we do there? Not add 2. Divide by 2. And now that we have our equation, now we can talk about parallel and perpendicular. So the parallel slope would be (3 over 2). And the perpendicular slope would be negative 2/3. So we have to remember that parallel lines have the same slope and perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slopes. Other questions on this page? All right. Sure. So in 19, we're looking for which of these lines is perpendicular to the given. So we have this one, it's in slope-intercept form, but all of our other ones are in standard. So we have to start solving this. First, what would the perpendicular slope to this positive 1/3. So now I'm going to solve these to figure out which of these would give me a positive 1/3 slope. So I'm going to start by subtracting the x term. Well, if I do that here, it says y equals negative 3x, so that's not going to work. And C is similar. If I just subtract the 3x, I'd have negative y equals negative 3x, so that's not going to give me a fraction. So it's going to be B or D. So in what I have so far, if I were to divide B by 3, and I'd end up with a negative. So it can't be B, it would have to be D. So that slope becomes positive 1/3. Yes. What about 20? 22. And then we'll move on to the next page. So in 22, find the value of A that would make the first equation perpendicular to the second. So in order to figure that out, we first have to solve this by doing what? I didn't hear what you said. Find the slope by doing what? It's almost already in slope-intercept form. We just have to get y by itself. So divide everything by 2. Okay, what would the perpendicular slope to this be? Negative 2/3. So that would be your A value. On to page 5. Questions on page 5? Yes. 24. Sure. So, with 24, we're given some equation, and we want to find another equation that's parallel to this one. So if you don't need that y-intercept, we can get rid of it. If it's parallel, the slope is going to be the same, that negative 4. So then we're using our point slope. Y minus our y1, 3, equals our slope, times x minus our x1, or plus 1. And then distribute and solve. So that final equation would become y equals negative 4x minus 1. And I can tell that these are parallel. They have the same slope but different y-intercepts. Other questions, confusions on this page? All right. 24. We just did that one.
Oh, 29.
29. Okay. So same kind of process, but we have to change our slope first. What would the perpendicular slope to 3/4 be? Negative 4/3. So then we're going to put all of those numbers into our point slope using the same process. So y plus 3 equals negative 4/3 times x minus 3. And distribute and solve. So our final equation would be y equals negative 4/3 x minus 1. Plus 1, sorry. And I can tell those are perpendicular because of their slopes. Okay, let's skip to page 7 so we can look at function notation problems. Any questions on page 7? Sure. So in 44, it's basically taking two different function notations and then combining them together. So I have different functions up here. I have f, I have g, I have h. So for the f function, I'm going to use that, f of x equals 5x minus 20. So we're going to do f of negative 1 equals 5 times negative 1 minus 20. And figure out what that is. So f of negative 1 would be negative 25. Then we're going to do the same thing for g, but we're going to use g's equation. G of 2 equals 2 squared plus 5 times 2 minus 11. And then figure out what that is. The 5 was in the equation. So if you look at the top of the box, it says use. Okay. What is g of 2? 3. Then it says I'm going to take those two and I'm going to add them together. So if I took negative 25 and I added 3, what would f of negative 1 plus g of 2 equal? Negative 20. So basically, if you can do something like that, you can do all of these ones that are just one number. Other questions on this page? Okay. So 40 is similar, but it's not saying f of x. But we do have different tables where we can start putting in x values to find y, or we can use our calculator. So we'll do a mixture of those. So let's say I'm going to look at table A, and I want to put the x value in and see do I get that y value. So if I put this in for this first one, negative 2/3 times 2 plus 1. If I start to simplify this, I get negative 4 over 3 plus 1, which is not going to give me negative 4, so I know that's out. Let's try the next one. So then if I try this equation with that same table and I have 1/2 times 2, well that would give me 1. And then 1 minus 5 does give me negative 4, so that one would be A. Then I could also test it in the calculator. So let's say I put this in the calculator, in my y equals, and I typed in negative 2/3 x plus 1. And I went into the table, second graph, and let's say I'm trying b. Well, the x value for b is 3, so if I go to 3, the y value should be negative 1. Okay, that one worked. I just want to double check another one. When x is 6, y is negative 3. So for that first one, that answer would be B, because that matched. So then we'll put another one using this method, the algebraic method. Let's say for C, I put this in here, put 1 in, and this would give me 4 plus 3, which is 7. If I did 2, that'd be 8 plus 3, which is 11, so that is C, and then by default, that is D. On page 8, last questions.
How do you know which multiply?
Say again.
How do you know what you multiply?
What do you mean?
You know how you multiply by 2.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know you're multiplying by 2?
So I'm taking whatever's in the x and I'm putting it in for x. Any questions on page 8? Yeah.
I'm going to take any one for x values.
So because it's multiple choice, you could try any of them. And then whichever one would work would be the answer. Any questions on page 8? Okay. 45. Okay. It'll be very similar to this one. So let's actually not do that one. Any questions on 46 through 50? $47 is similar to the one we just did, but this one's subtracting. But now we're only using the same equation. So if I find f of 8, and I put 8 in and we multiply, so 24 minus 2, f of 8 would be what? 22. And then for the second one, f of negative 5 would be 3 times negative 5 minus 2, or negative 15 minus 2. So f of negative 5 is, and then the last thing, it wants me to subtract f of 8 minus f of negative 5. So that would look like 22 minus negative 17. So f of 8 minus f of negative 5 would be 39. I will say that pages 9 and 10 are for what we're going to talk about after the test, the last thing we have to talk about in this unit before we do our project for that. So you have that part so that when we come to the quiz and the project, you have that to study, practice. Do you have any last minute questions before you guys take your quiz? Yes. Page up through page 8, we've done. Yeah, but it was similar to page 5. All of these are for quarter 2. Yes.
Is quarter 1 numbered?
Yes. No more grades unless you retake, finish tests, finish or complete missing delta max. Yes. Okay. So this quiz will be collaborative like the last one. However, I just am going to give you the same advice that I gave 6th period yesterday. If you have some opinion about what the answer or work should be, and everyone else is saying something different, yours might be right, so don't second guess yourself. If everyone is saying one thing but you're disagreeing, you're allowed to disagree. You don't have to put what everyone else is putting just because. So please don't second guess yourself. If you think it's right, still put that. And make sure we're not just copying down answers that were still explained. Okay, go ahead and clear off your desk.